All right, let's get to the news this morning. Fox Digital reached out to everyone affiliated with Joe Biden's cabinet. There were 26 people that they reached out to find out about Joe's mental fitness and acuity. What did they know? Who knew what? Did y'all cover it up? Only one person responded to that, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but that was Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra. But here's a flashback of Biden cabinet officials defending his mental fitness.
We have a very bold and vibrant president in Joe Biden.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
The president has no impairment. The president...
You've never seen any.
I don't know how many ways I can say this.
I wish you could be in a room with him the way I often am, seeing how he is simultaneously focused on a big picture vision and very focused on details.
Is he fit? He's proven it. He is, and he can do the job. I think his experience has helped him be a great president.
What else are they lying about? When I see people stare into the camera and lie to our face and to those reporters' faces, asking them directly, you have to just ask, what else are you lying about? And they will never have credibility with the American people. I think with the Democratic Party, it's going to be the people that knew and did and lied, and then the people that had nothing to do with it. The people that had nothing to do with it will be the ones that have a future in the party. So Xavier Becerra, the former HHS secretary, said this. He responded to Fox News Digital. He said, I met with President Biden when needed to make important decisions and to execute with my team at HHS. It's clear the president was getting older, but he made the mission clear. Run the largest health agency in the world, expand care to millions more Americans than ever before, negotiate the cost of prescription drugs, and pull us out of worldwide pandemic, and we delivered.
These people just don't get it. In order for this to work, they need to give a full confession. The talking point of that he was older is irrelevant. We have people that are older than the president that can still be able to do things. Chuck Grassley, he can do a press conference. He knows his talking points.
He knows 90s.
Exactly. So it's not about age. The question to the secretary and all the rest of the cabinet is, was he fit for office? And they know he wasn't, and so we need a full confession.
Well, Xavier, glad that he responded, the only one of the 26 to Fox Digital. Applaud him for that. But he never answered the question.
No.
He skirted the issue. The question was about his cognitive issues. And he said, I met with him. Then he said he got older, but Joe Biden's message was X, Y, and Z, and we delivered.
Yeah.
So I would just say one thing. He had 8 cabinet meetings with no cards.
Scripted.
In 4 years. President Trump's had 3 already. They never saw him. Austin disappeared, went to the hospital. No one even knew, because they weren't in contact. There was no one.
Just had to show signs of life every now and then.
Right, but then the cabinet secretaries were saying we couldn't get to him anyway, which is absolutely insane. Peter Doocy asked a great question to Caroline Leavitt yesterday, as usual, and it was about the first lady, the former first lady.
There are some folks in President Biden's inner circle who are now in talks with Republicans in Congress to give interviews about how they may have handled President Biden's decline. Is the president satisfied with aides only sitting for these transcribed interviews, or would he also like to see some kind of testimony from the former First Lady, Dr. Biden?
I think, frankly, the former First Lady should certainly speak up about what she saw in regards to her husband and when she saw it and what she knew, because I think anybody looking, again, at the videos and photo evidence of Joe Biden with your own eyes and a little bit of common sense can see this was a clear cover-up. And Jill Biden was certainly complicit in that cover-up. There's documentation, video evidence of her clearly shielding her husband away from the cameras. They were just on The View last week. She was saying everything is fine. She's still lying to the American people. She still thinks the American public are so stupid that they're going to believe her lies. And frankly, it's insulting, and she needs to answer for it.
Well, lying to the American people, she's still lying to him. I mean, all the reports indicated that the family and the advisors never told the president that he's unwell. I mean, that's why I keep making the point is, did the president know that things were going off the rails here? It was the family's job to tell him. It was the cabinet job to tell him. Look, I just think that the Democrats feel like this is just going to go away. I heard one Democrat on our airwaves say that this story is only going to last for 2 months. Well, maybe that would have been the case if they would just give us a full confession, but they're not. And so it's a drip, drip, drip approach, and it seems like we're finding more and more out about what we knew already 4 years ago every single day.
Yeah, he should have just dropped out because now his legacy is tainted because of all of this. In February, a few months before that disastrous debate, his doctor declared him fit to serve. So that's why James Comer wants to interview him, wants to interview some of the staffers.
He should use his medical license for that.
Well, James Comer's alleging that they played a role in concealing Biden's mental decline. They might also subpoena Karine Jean-Pierre and Jill Biden.
Yeah, and I just want to just add something real quick. Now they're going after Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, saying we don't know the health of this president. Are you insane?
Don't do it.
So just going to show you they haven't learned anything. Number one, they're trying to jam that lie down that we just found out he had cancer. We know that he hasn't had a PSA test since 2014. No one could be that irresponsible. And number two is, whatever you think of Trump, this is the same guy, 78 guys working 20 hours a day. He gives you 3 press conferences. He gives you like 7 press conferences a week, talks you on the plane and out the plane. Nobody's questioning President Trump's intellectual ability.
His cholesterol's better now. They released that.
Please.
He lost 20 pounds since the last time he was president. He had 2 cataract surgeries. They found a benign polyp when he had his colonoscopy. They've released his medical
accusation is just laughable.
Yeah.
No one's taking him seriously.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.